AITA for exposing my family after they demanded $22,600 and staged a false confession? I'm Susan, 38, and being the oldest daughter in my family has always come with invisible fine print. I was the one who remembered Dad's refill dates, brought extra paper plates to birthday dinners, and answered late-night calls whenever my mother said Amber had one little problem. Those little problems had an impressive habit of costing more than my car payment. For years, I told myself keeping the peace was cheaper than fighting. Then my mother tried to make me sign a lie in front of the whole family, and I finally let everyone see the bill. My younger sister, Amber, is 30. In our family, Amber was always treated as fragile, even when the only thing threatening her was the consequence of her own choices. When she forgot to pay her electric bill, Mom called it an oversight. When she damaged her car because she ignored a warning light for months, Mom called it bad luck. When she borrowed money from our cousin Victor and stopped answering his messages about repayment, Mom said Amber was overwhelmed. But when I asked for receipts before handing over money, I was cold. When I asked for a repayment date, I was keeping score. When I refused to treat every bad decision as an emergency, I was told I had forgotten the meaning of family. My father, Dennis, was different from my mother in one important way. He rarely said anything at all. Dad was 67 and had always believed that silence prevented arguments. If Mom and Amber were upset, he lowered his eyes, changed the subject, or found a reason to leave the room. He was not cruel. He was conflict avoidant to the point that other people could be cruel in front of him without being interrupted. That silence was part of how I became the responsible one. A couple of years earlier, Dad had started needing more regular help with medication, home care visits, medical supplies, and insurance-related expenses. Nothing dramatic, but enough moving parts that missed payments could create real problems. I helped set up a separate care account. I was authorized on it, and I funded most of it through automatic monthly transfers. The account was supposed to be simple. If an expense was for Dad's care, it could be paid from the account. If it wasn't for Dad, it wasn't supposed to be charged to the account. Mom had access because she handled many of Dad's day-to-day needs. She picked up prescriptions, dealt with home care invoices, and kept track of insurance paperwork. At least that was the arrangement. I labeled my transfers plainly: Dad Care, Pharmacy, or Home Care Invoice. I saved receipts and bank confirmations because I had learned the hard way that verbal agreements in my family had a short life expectancy. Mom hated that habit. "You make everything so official," she once said while I was stapling a pharmacy receipt to an invoice. "I make money official," I told her. "That keeps it from becoming personal." She rolled her eyes. "Not everything needs documentation." In our family, that sentence usually meant someone wanted the freedom to deny something later. Despite what Mom told other people, I never resented helping Dad. What I resented was the way every legitimate expense somehow became proof that I should also finance Amber's life. If I could pay for Dad's medication, Mom reasoned, then surely I could cover Amber's overdue rent. If I could pay a home care invoice, then surely I could replace Amber's tires. If I refused, Mom acted as though I had taken the money directly out of Amber's hand. The call about the $22,600 came on a Tuesday evening. I was washing a coffee mug when my phone lit up with Amber's name. I almost let it go to voicemail. She had sent me a Venmo request 2 days earlier for $1,400 with the note, "Urgent, explain later," and ignored my text asking what it was for. But I answered. Amber was already crying. "I wouldn't ask if I had another option," she said. I set the mug in the sink. "How much?" There was a pause. $22,600. I thought I had misheard her. $2,200? Number $22,600. I leaned against the counter and looked at the dark window over the sink. What happened? Everything happened. That's not an answer. My car, my housing bills. I'm behind, and if I don't fix it now, I'm going to lose everything. What bills? Susan, please. Send me the statements. Her crying stopped for half a second. What? Send me the creditor names, balances, due dates, and anything showing what has to be paid immediately. If there are legitimate bills at risk of shutting off housing or transportation, I'll review them. You want me to send you my whole life so you can judge me? I want to know what $22,600 is for. I'm your sister. And that's still a lot of money. She took a shaky breath. Mom understands. Then Mom can explain the numbers. That's not fair. Neither is asking me to transfer more than $20,000 with no paperwork. Her voice hardened. Why do you always make me feel like a criminal? I asked for bills, Amber. You supplied the word criminal. She hung up. Mom called 3 minutes later. I watched her name flash across the screen twice before I answered. What did you say to your sister? She demanded. I asked her what the money was for. She is having a family emergency. What family? Don't be difficult. I'm not being difficult. I'm asking what the emergency is. Mom exhaled into the phone as though I were a disappointing employee. Amber could lose her car. She could lose her home. She is barely holding herself together, and you decided to interrogate her. Send me the bills. Your sister needs help, not an audit. A $22,000 request is an audit. You have benefited from this family long enough. It is time to give back. That line almost made me laugh, but there was nothing funny about the confidence behind it. What exactly have I taken from this family that adds up to $22,600? This is why people think you're difficult with money. Which people? Mom went quiet. That was the first sign she had already started telling the story. I'm willing to discuss paying verified, urgent expenses directly, I said. I'm not sending Amber a lump sum. You always need control. No. I need documentation. She doesn't have time for this. Then she should make time to call her creditors. Mom lowered her voice. Blood should mean something to you. It does. That's why I'm willing to pay legitimate bills directly. But blood isn't a routing number. She hung up on me too. By the next morning I had 6 missed calls from Mom, 2 voicemail previews, and a text from my Aunt Joyce. Your mother says Amber is in serious trouble. I hope you'll do the right thing. Joyce was Mom's younger sister. She valued family harmony, but she was practical and usually stayed out of our money arguments. The fact that she contacted me meant Mom had made the rounds. I replied privately. Did she tell you what the money is for? Joyce answered 10 minutes later. She said that wasn't the point. That phrase came directly from Mom. I had heard it whenever facts were inconvenient. Victor texted later that afternoon. Heard Amber's in trouble again. Is this as bad as Linda says? Victor was my cousin, 43, blunt but not malicious. I typed 3 replies and deleted all of them before sending one. I don't know. Amber won't provide bills or dates. He sent back a thumbs up, then another message. That sounds familiar. I made a note of it, but I did not ask what he meant. Not yet. Mom continued calling. I did not answer. I had stopped discussing money with her by phone whenever possible because our conversations changed shape after they ended. A clear refusal became cruelty. A conditional offer became abandonment. A request for receipts became public humiliation. So I sent one text. I will review legitimate urgent bills and pay approved expenses directly. I will not transfer Amber $22,600 without documentation or a repayment plan. Mom replied almost immediately. Your father would be ashamed of how you treat your sister. That was her most reliable weapon. Dad's health, Dad's birthday, Dad's peace. Whatever she wanted could be wrapped in his name. I did not respond. That evening Amber called again. She sounded less tearful and more irritated. Mom said you're making this impossible. I'm asking for the same information any lender would ask for. You're not a lender. You're my sister. Then stop treating me like a bank. I told you what it's for. You said car, housing, and bills. That could mean anything. I have balances. There are fees. Some installment stuff got behind. It snowballed. What installment stuff? Just purchases. Personal purchases? I needed things. What things? Why does it matter now? The balance exists. It matters because you called it a family emergency. It's an emergency to me. That's not the same thing. She muttered something I could not hear. What did you say? I said Mom already knows about the card stuff, so I don't know why you're acting like this is all new. I went still. What card stuff? Nothing. You just said Mom knows about the card stuff. I'm stressed. You're twisting my words. No. I'm finally listening to them. I have to go. She ended the call. I stood in my kitchen with the phone still against my ear. There were several cards in Amber's life. Credit cards, store cards, a car payment account, but only one card connected me directly to Mom's finances. Dad's care account debit card. I opened the banking app. The first page looked normal. My automatic transfer had arrived at the beginning of the month. A pharmacy payment had cleared. So had a home care invoice. Then I scrolled. There was a food delivery charge on a night Dad had been at Joyce's house for dinner. A retail installment payment. A car-related charge that did not match Dad's vehicle or any medical transportation expense. 2 cash withdrawals. Late fees. Several smaller purchases at places that sold everything from clothing to home decor. Any one of those charges might have had an innocent explanation, but together they formed a pattern that had nothing to do with medication, home care, insurance, or medical supplies. I pulled up the previous month. More installment payments. More delivery orders. A subscription charge. Another cash withdrawal. I opened the folder where I kept Dad's actual care records and compared dates. His medication was paid on a Tuesday. The next day, the same debit card covered a personal retail charge. A home care invoice cleared on Friday. That weekend, there were 2 transactions I had never seen receipts for. My stomach tightened, but I did not call Mom. I called the bank. Because I was an authorized owner on the account, the representative could review access and recent transactions with me. She confirmed that the active debit card tied to the suspicious charges was the card assigned to Mom. I asked whether a replacement card had been issued. No. I asked whether the card could be removed from use immediately. Yes. Do it, I said. The representative warned me that any legitimate automatic payments tied to that card might fail. That's fine. I'll move verified expenses to direct payment. She confirmed the card was disabled. I wrote down the confirmation number and the time of the call. Then I canceled my automatic transfer into that account. I did not stop helping Dad. I stopped sending money into an account Mom could access without oversight. After that, I downloaded statements for the previous year. The legitimate care expenses were easy to identify. Pharmacy payments matched receipts. Home care invoices matched provider statements. Medical supply purchases lined up with dates and amounts. The suspicious charges were not all dramatic. That made them more believable and, in some ways, worse. Amber had not drained the account in one reckless spree. The money had leaked out through delivery meals, installment plans, withdrawals, late charges, and purchases small enough to ignore if no one looked closely. I highlighted each unmatched transaction. Then I searched my messages. Amber had sent requests for money over months with notes like urgent, short until Friday, and I'll explain later. When I asked for repayment dates, she changed the subject or stopped responding. Buried in a thread with Mom was a message from 2 months earlier. Don't bring up the card around your father. Amber can't handle being blamed right now. At the time, I had assumed Mom meant one accidental purchase. She had told me Amber used the wrong card for gas and would repay it. I had asked when. Mom wrote back, "Please don't turn this into one of your investigations." Now I understood why. I texted Mom one sentence. I reviewed Dad's care account. Call me when you are ready to explain the personal charges. She called within seconds. I let it ring once, then answered and started recording notes by hand. "Susan, do not overreact," she said. "How did Amber get your debit card?" "She borrowed it." "For what?" "She was helping me with errands." "Dad's errands?" "Some of them." "Did you give her permission to use the card for personal expenses?" "Not exactly." "That means yes." "No, it means things got mixed up." "Over multiple months?" "She is under a lot of pressure." "So you knew?" "I knew she had made some mistakes." "How much?" "I don't have the exact number in front of me." "I do." Mom was silent. I read several transactions aloud. A retail installment payment. A delivery charge. A cash withdrawal. A car-related expense. "She was going to put it back," Mom said. When? She still plans to. With the $22,600 she wants from me? That money would stabilize everything. There it was. The emergency was not one crisis. It was a pile of consumer debt, late fees, overdue balances, and money taken from Dad's care account. Mom wanted me to hand Amber enough cash to erase the evidence and call it compassion. How much of the $22,600 is repayment to Dad's account? I asked. This is not the time to divide everything into categories. It's exactly the time. You are humiliating your sister. This conversation is private. Your tone is humiliating. My tone did not use Dad's care card. Mom inhaled sharply. Do not tell your father. Why? He doesn't need the stress. He needs to know where his care money went. Amber cannot handle being blamed right now. You mean she cannot handle being responsible? You have always been hard on her. I have always asked her to repay what she borrows. She is not like you. No. She has you protecting her from every number. Mom's voice changed. The polished moral tone slipped, and something colder came through. If you tell Dennis about this before his birthday, you will ruin the entire week. I didn't create the problem. But you can choose not to make it worse. You gave Amber access to his care card. I was trying to help both of them. You helped Amber spend his money. That's a cruel way to describe a complicated situation. It's an accurate way. She hung up. 15 minutes later I got a text. Do not bring this up at the birthday dinner. Amber will repay it. We need to present a united family. I took a screenshot and emailed it to myself. Then another message arrived. I told people you stopped helping because it was easier than explaining what your sister did. Do not make me regret protecting her. I stared at that one for a long time. There was the whole system in 2 sentences. Mom had lied about me to protect Amber, then described the lie as mercy. I saved the message in 3 places. The next morning Mom left a voicemail. She must have thought she was calling to soften things, but her voice was tight with irritation. Susan, I need you to stop making this about the account. I told them you stopped helping because that's easier than explaining what your sister did. Nobody needed every ugly detail. Just agree to help, and we can fix this quietly before your father's birthday. The voicemail was 41 seconds long. I saved it. I did not confront her again. Instead I prepared. First, I confirmed in writing that Mom's debit card access had been removed. Second, I arranged for Dad's pharmacy and home care provider to bill me directly for approved expenses. I told both offices that I would need invoices and receipts before payment. They were used to family billing changes and did not ask for gossip. Third, I printed a timeline. It began with my monthly transfers into the care account. Next came legitimate expenses with matching receipts. Then suspicious charges with no care documentation. I did not label every unknown charge as theft. I simply marked them unverified or personal, confirmed by Linda. Fourth, I printed selected messages from Amber and Mom. Not every insult, not every guilt trip, just the ones that established the facts. Amber asking for $22,600. Amber refusing to provide bills. Amber mentioning the card stuff. Mom telling me not to discuss the card because Amber could not handle blame. Mom admitting she told relatives I stopped helping. Finally, I met with the notary and signed a short statement. It said I would not accept responsibility for Amber's debts, would not allow my name or financial standing to be used in any loan, collection, or family agreement, and would not sign any statement implying I had withdrawn support from Dad. It also stated that future assistance for Dad would be paid directly to verified providers at my discretion. No cash transfers. No shared debit card. No undocumented reimbursements. No verbal money agreements. I put the notarized letter, copies of statements, receipts, and the bank confirmation in a plain envelope. I was not preparing to attack my family. I was preparing not to be cornered by them again. Dad's birthday dinner was that Saturday. Mom had chosen a potluck because she liked to say everyone contributing made the meal meaningful, although she still controlled who brought what. Joyce brought baked pasta. Victor brought rolls and a tray of vegetables. Someone else brought fried chicken. I brought a pie and a pack of paper plates because experience had taught me Mom would run out. The grocery store birthday cake sat on the kitchen counter with the candles still in their plastic package. Plastic forks were stacked beside silverware because there were more relatives than chairs. 2 cousins balanced plates on their knees in the living room. Everything looked ordinary. That made the tension worse. Mom greeted me at the door with a hug that felt staged. "I'm glad you came," she said. "Maybe tonight we can all remember what family means." I remember exactly what it means. Her arms tightened for 1 second before she released me. Amber stood near the dining table. Her eyes were already pink, though dinner had not started. She looked at the envelope under my arm. "What's that?" "Paperwork." Her face changed. "You promised you wouldn't do this here." "I promised nothing. Mom said you agreed to keep Dad out of it." "Mom says a lot of things for me." Amber glanced toward the kitchen. "You're going to destroy him." "No. I'm going to protect his account." She turned away. Dad was sitting in his usual chair, smiling tiredly as relatives moved around him. When he saw me, he stood and hugged me. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Happy birthday, Dad. You didn't have to bring anything." "I know." He noticed the envelope but did not ask about it. For the first half of dinner, everyone behaved as though nothing was wrong. Mom told a story about a pharmacy mix-up that made her sound heroic. Amber laughed too loudly at things that were not funny. Joyce asked me whether I wanted more pasta, then avoided eye contact. Victor watched Amber across the table with an expression I could not read. Dad seemed happy to have everyone there. That was the only reason I considered leaving before dessert. I did not want his birthday to become another family tribunal. But then Mom touched the papers beside her plate. She had planned this before I arrived. After dinner, while people were still scraping plates into the trash, Mom stood and tapped a spoon against her glass. The room quieted gradually. Dad looked up. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Just something the family needs to address," she said. The cake remained untouched on the counter. The candles were still beside it. Mom held up a single sheet of paper. "Since Susan will not listen privately, maybe she will listen in front of people who love this family." Several relatives shifted in their chairs. Amber lowered her head. One tear rolled down her cheek with remarkable timing. I kept my hands flat on the table. "Are you sure you want to do this in front of everyone?" I asked. Mom looked almost relieved that I had given her an opening. "Yes, maybe public honesty is what you need," Dad said. "Linda, it's my birthday." "I know, Dennis. That is why this matters. Family should not carry resentment into another year." She began reading. She called the page a family accountability statement. According to the statement, I had withdrawn emotional and financial support from my family. I had used money to control Amber. I had humiliated my sister by demanding private records. I had failed to support Dad's care consistently. I had damaged trust through suspicion and punishment. Then Mom read the final paragraph. To begin repairing the harm, Susan agrees to provide $22,600 by Monday and to stop attaching degrading conditions to future family assistance. She placed the paper in front of me. Then she placed a pen on top of it. For a few seconds nobody spoke. Dad stared at the table. Joyce pressed her lips together. Victor leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. Amber sniffed softly. Mom said, "This is not punishment. This is accountability." I looked at the paper. There was a signature line with my full name typed beneath it. "You wrote a confession for me," I said. "I wrote what needs to be acknowledged. You wrote that I stopped helping Dad." "You did." "No, I didn't." Mom's face tightened. "You cut off the account 3 days ago." "Exactly. After I found out what you did." Amber started crying harder. Mom pointed toward her without looking away from me. "Look at your sister. She is losing everything, and you are worried about technicalities. I'm worried about $22,600. Then tell everyone why your sister is losing everything." I slid the pen back toward Mom. "I'm not signing that." Her voice rose. "Then explain yourself." I reached for the envelope. "Fine. But then everyone gets the whole story." The room changed. Mom's confidence did not disappear, but it cracked around the edges. "Susan," she said quietly, "you wanted public honesty." I opened the envelope. "So let's be honest." I handed the first page to Dad. It was the transfer history. Every month showed money moving from me into his care account. The labels were visible: Dad Care, Pharmacy, Home Care Invoice. Dad adjusted his glasses. "These transfers are from you?" he asked. "Every month." Mom cut in. That does not mean she was emotionally supportive. I ignored her and handed Joyce copies of the pharmacy receipts and home care invoices. "These are the legitimate expenses," I said. "They matched the account." Then I placed the highlighted statements on the table. "These are the charges that do not." Amber stood suddenly. "I'm not sitting here while you pass around my private information. Your name is not on these statements," I said. "Dad's is." That money was going back. When? "I don't know." "Before or after I gave you $22,600? Mom slapped her palm lightly on the table. "Enough. Amber made mistakes. She did not steal from her father." "I didn't use that word." "You are implying it." "I'm showing transactions." I pointed to the highlighted lines. Food delivery, retail installment payments, cash withdrawals, a car-related charge. None of these have receipts connected to Dad's care. Mom said, "Some purchases may have been mixed together." "Over several months?" "She was helping me with errands." "Then show the receipts." Mom looked around the room, searching for sympathy. "This is what Susan does. She turns pain into paperwork." "No," I said. "I turn money into paperwork because pain keeps getting used to hide it." I handed Joyce the printed message where Mom told me not to mention the card around Dad. Joyce read it twice. Then she passed it to Victor. Amber wiped her face. "I was going to pay it back." Victor looked up. "With what?" Amber glared at him. "This has nothing to do with you." He nodded once. "That's what you said when you borrowed from me." The room went quiet again. Mom stared at Victor. "What are you talking about?" Victor rested his elbows on the table. 8 months ago, Amber told me she needed money to keep her car. Said it was one emergency. I lent her $3,800. Amber said, "You told me not to worry about it right away. I told you we could set a schedule. You stopped answering." I was embarrassed. "You were still posting pictures from restaurants." "That doesn't mean anything. It means I'm not lending into a story that keeps changing." One of my uncles looked down at his plate. A cousin's spouse quietly moved the cake knife farther from the stack of plates, as if clearing space could make the situation less uncomfortable. Mom tried to regain control. "This dinner is not about Victor's old resentment. This is about Susan refusing to help her sister." I took out another page. "This is Amber's request." I read the amount and the vague explanation. Car, housing, and bills. No creditor names. No due dates. No repayment plan. I offered to review urgent bills and pay verified expenses directly. Joyce looked at Mom. "You told me Susan refused to help at all." Mom spread her hands. "She put conditions on it." "Receipts are not unusual for that amount," Joyce said. "Family should not have to prove suffering. Banks make people prove income for less than this," Victor said. Mom's expression sharpened. "I will not have this family reduced to bank policies." "You reduced Dad's care account to Amber's backup card," I said. Amber pushed her chair away from the table. "I needed help." "And you had it," I said. "You had Mom's protection, Dad's money, Victor's loan, and repeated requests to me. What you didn't have was accountability. You always hated me." "No. I hated being assigned your consequences." She covered her face. Mom moved toward her, then turned back to me with tears in her eyes. "I was trying to protect this family." Joyce lifted the bank statement. "Linda, is any of this fake?" Mom blinked. "This is an ugly, incomplete picture." "That is not what I asked. You don't understand the pressure I've been under." "Is any of this fake?" Mom looked at me instead of Joyce. "You came here prepared to humiliate us." "I came prepared not to be humiliated." I took out my phone. There is one more thing. Mom's face went pale. Susan, don't. The entire room heard that. I opened the saved voicemail and pressed play. Mom's voice filled the silence. I told them you stopped helping because that's easier than explaining what your sister did. Nobody needed every ugly detail. Just agree to help, and we can fix this quietly before your father's birthday. The message ended. No one spoke. Even Amber stopped crying. I set the phone on the table. Mom stared at it as though the device had betrayed her. You recorded private family communication, she said. You left a voicemail. I was upset. You were specific. Dad was still looking at the transfer history. Linda, he said. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. Why did you tell me she stopped? Mom turned toward him. Dennis, I was trying to keep you calm. Did Susan pay these? Yes, but... Every month. Yes. And Amber used the card? She made some mistakes. Dad looked at Amber. How much? Amber shook her head. I don't know exactly. I answered. The unverified and confirmed personal charges total several $1,000s. The $22,600 includes those, other debts, installment balances, late fees, and overdue accounts. Dad's shoulders lowered. He looked older than he had when dinner began. You used the care card? He asked Amber. She cried again, but this time it sounded less controlled. I was going to fix it. With Susan's money? He asked. Amber did not answer. Dad looked at Mom. And you knew? Mom sat down. I knew enough to know she needed help. That isn't what I asked. It was almost the same line Joyce had used, and hearing it from Dad changed the room. Mom's eyes filled. You both have no idea what it is like to hold this family together. I slid the notarized letter across the table. This is what happens next. Mom looked at the notary seal. What is that? My actual statement. I read only the relevant part aloud. I will not accept responsibility for Amber's debts. I will not sign any statement claiming I stopped supporting Dad. I will not allow my name to be used for loans, repayment promises, or family pressure. Future help for Dad will be paid directly to verified providers. Mom looked up sharply. You canceled the card? I removed your access after confirming it had been used for personal expenses. You had no right. I am authorized on the account I fund it, and the card was not being used according to our agreement. How am I supposed to pay for your father's prescriptions? The pharmacy will bill me directly. What about home care? They will invoice me. So now I have to ask your permission for every little thing? No. You have to provide documentation for expenses paid with my money. That is control. That is a boundary. Amber stared at the letter. So you're really not helping me? I offered to review urgent bills and pay legitimate expenses directly. You refused. I can't fix this with a couple of bills. Then call your creditors. Ask for hardship plans. Cancel installment purchases. Sell what you can. Make a repayment schedule. You say that like it's easy. I did not say it was easy. You have the money. That does not make your debt mine. Mom pushed the letter away. You embarrassed your father on his birthday. I looked at the untouched cake, then back at her. You stood up with a fake confession and a pen. You could have handled this privately. I tried. You told relatives I abandoned Dad. You didn't have to play the voicemail. You didn't have to leave it. Mom began crying, but the room did not rush to comfort her the way it usually did. Joyce kept looking at the statements. Victor picked up one of the highlighted pages. Dad sat very still. A few relatives exchanged glances but said nothing. Not everyone suddenly became my ally. One aunt whispered that money should never be discussed at a birthday. An uncle muttered that the whole thing had gone too far. But neither of them asked me to sign the confession. That mattered. Mom had expected the room to pressure me. Instead, the room had become a witness. Dad finally looked at me. Is my care still covered? Yes, I said. Verified expenses will be paid directly. He nodded slowly. Then you didn't cut me off. No. Mom said. She cut me out. I met her eyes. Yes. There was no useful reason to pretend otherwise. The dinner dissolved after that. Nobody sang right away. Someone eventually lit the candles because Dad asked them to, but the song was uneven and quiet. The cake was cut with plastic forks scraping paper plates. People left earlier than usual. I did not pack leftovers. I did not wash dishes. I did not collect cups from the living room or wipe the table while Mom cried in the kitchen. For once, I did not manage the emotional cleanup. I picked up my purse and the original documents. Amber followed me toward the door. You ruined everything, she said. Her face was blotchy, and for a moment she looked less like the golden child and more like a scared adult who had finally reached the edge of other people's rescue. No, I said. I stopped paying for everything. You could fix this. You can start fixing it. I don't even know who to call first. The creditors whose statements you refused to send me. You really don't care what happens to me. I care. I just don't care enough to lie for you. She stared at me. Behind her, Mom stepped into the hallway. One day you will regret treating your sister like a stranger. I treated her like an adult. You enjoyed this. That accusation landed harder than I expected. I had not enjoyed watching Dad realize his care money had been misused. I had not enjoyed Joyce's embarrassment or Amber's panic. I had not enjoyed hearing Mom's lie played back in a room full of relatives. But I had felt relief. I did not apologize for that. I asked you privately, I said. You chose the audience. Then I left. By the time I got home, I had 9 missed calls from Mom. The voicemail previews shifted in tone. The first said I had gone too far. The second said Dad was devastated. The third said Amber was having a panic attack. The fourth said family problems should never be documented like business disputes. The fifth said Mom forgave me. I did not listen to the rest. Amber texted after midnight. You made everyone think I stole from Dad. I replied. You used Dad's care card for personal expenses. Tell people whatever accurate word you prefer. She sent several paragraphs about stress, shame, and how she had planned to repay everything once she got stable. I read them once. Then she wrote, if you had just sent the money, none of this would have happened. That sentence erased any remaining doubt. I responded, if I had sent the money, it would have happened again. The next morning, Mom called 6 more times. I sent one text. I won't discuss money unless it's in writing. I won't pay Amber's debts. I won't let you use Dad's care account as a shield anymore. Mom replied, you are breaking this family apart. I did not answer. Later that day, Joyce called. I almost ignored it, but I picked up. I owe you an apology, she said. For what? For repeating your mother's version before asking you. I sat down at the kitchen table. You asked eventually. I should have asked before I left that message. That would have been better. She accepted that without defending herself. Is Dennis's care covered? She asked. Yes. Direct billing. Good. There was a pause. Linda says you blindsided her. She wrote a confession for me and put a pen on top of it. I told her that. What did she say? That she was desperate. That's not the same as being right. No, Joyce said. It isn't. She told me Dad had asked her to help review the statements. Mom had tried to take the papers away after I left, but Joyce kept her copies. Some of the family still thinks the dinner was the wrong place, she said. It was. Joyce went quiet. Your mother made it the place, she said finally. Yes. Victor texted that evening. For what it's worth, I'm done lending Amber money. A few minutes later, another message came. 2 other relatives called me. Apparently she borrowed from them too. I did not feel triumphant. I felt tired. Amber's pattern had survived because each person thought they were the only one. Mom kept every loan private, every failed repayment compassionate, and every refusal shameful. Once the stories were compared, the pattern became obvious. Over the next week, the consequences began to settle. Amber did not receive $22,600 from me. Victor refused another loan. Joyce refused to lend her cash, but gave her the number for a non-profit credit counseling service. Two relatives who had privately considered helping backed away after learning about the care card. Dad told Amber she had to repay the personal charges to the care account before he would discuss any other assistance. Mom hated that. She sent me a message saying I had turned Dad against his own daughter. I replied. He saw his own bank statement. Amber eventually called her creditors. I knew because she sent me a furious text about being offered payment plans instead of real help. She had to cancel several installment purchases and return items she still could. The car lender gave her a short extension. Her housing situation was less immediate than she had claimed, although she was behind. The number $22,600 had been designed to solve everything at once without forcing her to change anything. Without the lump sum, she had to face each debt separately. Mom also lost more than card access. She lost control of the story. When she told relatives I had abandoned Dad, Joyce corrected her. When she said I had refused all help, Victor mentioned my offer to pay verified bills directly. When she described the care card as a misunderstanding, Dad asked why a misunderstanding lasted for months. Mom stopped getting automatic sympathy. She still got some. Families do not reorganize themselves around truth in a single evening. A couple of relatives continued saying I should have protected her dignity. One suggested I could have paid the money first and sorted out responsibility later. I asked him whether he was willing to contribute. He changed the subject. Dad asked to meet me privately 1 week after the dinner. We sat across from each other at a small table. He had a paper cup of coffee he barely touched. For several minutes he looked at the lid. Then he said, I should have said something at dinner. You should have said something years ago. I know. I had expected excuses. Hearing him agree took some of the anger out of me, but not all of it. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the cup. I thought staying quiet kept things from getting worse. It kept things easier for Mom. He nodded. And harder for you. Yes. I didn't know she told people you stopped helping. You didn't ask. No. He looked at me then. I saw the transfers. Joyce helped me match them to the receipts. I never stopped. I understand that now. I wanted the apology to repair more than it could. I wanted him to name every dinner where he let Mom call me selfish. Every phone call where he handed the phone back to her instead of asking what happened. Every time he accepted peace purchase with my silence. Instead he said, I know I left you standing there alone. That's what you do when things get uncomfortable. He flinched but did not deny it. I'm sorry. I believed he meant it. That did not erase the pattern. I love you, I said. But I'm not going back to being the family's unpaid damage control department. I'm not asking you to. Mom will. I know. And when she does, I need you not to hide. He looked down again. I'll try. That's not a promise. No, he said. It isn't. But I'll start by asking questions. It was not a heroic speech. Dad did not transform into someone fearless. But he agreed that his care costs would be paid directly to providers. He agreed to review statements himself. He agreed that Mom would not speak for him in financial matters. He also told me he had asked Amber to apologize. She said you wouldn't accept it, he said. She hasn't offered one. He gave a sad half-smile. That sounds like avoidance. It is. Before we left, Dad asked whether I would still come to family dinners. Not dinners where I'm treated like a defendant. What about my next birthday? We'll see how this year goes. He nodded. That was the new difference. He did not tell me to forgive. He did not ask me to make Mom comfortable. He accepted that access to me was no longer automatic. Mom continued trying different approaches. Some days she blamed me. Some days she cried. Once she sent a long message about sacrifices she had made as a mother, as though raising me created a lifelong debt she could collect on Amber's behalf. I answered only when the message involved Dad's care, and only in writing. When the pharmacy sent an invoice, I paid it directly. When Mom requested reimbursement for medical supplies, I asked for the receipt. She sent a photo of it after 2 angry paragraphs. I paid the verified amount and ignored the rest. Amber contacted me less often. Her messages shifted from pleading to resentment to silence. I heard through Joyce that she had begun a repayment plan and picked up extra hours. I did not celebrate her struggle, but I did not rescue her from it either. The care account remained open with restricted access, but I stopped placing money where Mom could move it. Dad's expenses were handled directly. The unverified charges were documented. Repayment was Amber's responsibility. I also stopped organizing family events. The first time Mom asked me to bring plates, order a cake, confirm attendance, and smooth things over with Joyce, I replied, "I'm not available to coordinate." She wrote back, "You know no one else will do it correctly." For years, that sentence would have pulled me in. This time I set down my phone and let incorrectly happen. The family survived. The gathering was smaller. Someone forgot napkins. The cake was picked up late. No one died. That was when I understood how much of my role had depended on the threat that everything would collapse without me. The truth was simpler. Things might become inconvenient. People might have to solve their own problems. Mom might lose the image of effortless family unity. That was not collapse. That was consequence. I did not destroy my family at Dad's birthday dinner. I refused to sign the version of myself my mother had written. I did not abandon Dad. I removed his care money from people who had treated it like a private rescue fund. I did not ruin Amber. I stopped protecting her from numbers with her name on them. And I did not become cold. They called me cold because I stopped burning myself to keep them warm. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.